listening to a proud member of the Dice Tower Network, dedicated to bringing podcasters together for the greater good of gaming. It's sort of like Voltron, but with better lip syncing. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com.
Welcome to Board Gamers Anonymous, a podcast by gamers and the insane fun we have at the table together. This is Anthony.
This is Chris.
This is Daniel.
This is Drew.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Episode 46. This week we're going to be talking about Smallworld, a classic, but an awesome game that we've all got a chance to play recently.
And it never ends. It just keeps going on and on, my friends.
If he told us he was going to do that, I would have said no to this review.
It's only the beginning.
All right. I guess I got my intro music for this week.
That's right.
All right. That's going to be our feature review. Also, a couple other things we got to the table and some acquisition disorders because it's almost Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
But first things first, we have Drew with the news.
Yep, shout it from the tabletop. We have news for the board gaming community. First off, there's a new pandemic expansion. Okay, moving on. Batman Love Letter. Okay, next item. Munchkin. Oh, no, guys, no, this one's actually real. This is a good one. Not just another endless series of expansions, but Munchkin. Steve Jackson Games is creating a Munchkin pop-up store in New York City to be timed at the New York City Toy and, what do they call that? The New York City Toy Fair. That happens every February here in the city. So there's going to be an actual on-the-street pop-up store on 46th, you know the Restaurant Row on West 46th Street?
Yes.
Not too many blocks from the Javits Center.
Sure.
It's going to be right there on Restaurant Row. So it's really cool. You can go down there, have a nice meal, and sometime during the weekend, Steve Jackson, John Kovalik, what's his name? They're going to be there signing stuff.
Okay.
So it's going to be really cool. Even if you can't get into the toy fair, hang out there. What is it? And the thing I like that I think is cool about it is they put it in a place where there's just a lot of non-gamers. So it's telling me that they're opening themselves up to the casual gamer, the non-gamer, trying to reach out and hopefully interest some more people besides the hardcore. Don't know if you heard about this big scandal that has rocked the hobby world. The Ticket to Ride World Championship. You guys know all about that. I just wanted to summarize in case some of the listeners haven't caught that. The person who won the championship, World Championship, recently was stripped of his title by Days of Wonder for cheating. At least that's how the headlines reported. The person whose title was stripped didn't say cheating. He admitted to making a mistake, to moving out of turn, and he's totally agreed with Days of Wonder taking the award away because that's what the rules say. They can do it. But the challenger definitely thought there was some cheating there. But
Well, the big issue with that was it was recorded. So what happened was that after everything went down and after the person had won, people looked back at the tape and were able to go, hey, he's taking extra turns and taking extra cards. And it seems that even though they had two referees kind of watching this match, everyone was so exhausted that this player was able to take extra turns without anyone noticing.
yeah, it's like 7 or 8 games in one day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was pretty surprising and pretty insane to cheat for a Ticket to Ride tournament. But I guess like many tournaments that we've all played, there have been people who have somewhat lost their way and, decided that it was more important than, fair gameplay.
Okay, now some of you guys have played games for 24 hours straight. So
Yes.
you must know what it's like to be trying to play a game without much sleep.
Yeah, do we know if this was intentional? I mean,
No, he never admitted to intentional.
right? I mean, people make mistakes, right? That just happens, especially when you've been playing the same board game for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
Moving out of turn, that's a pretty minor mistake. I can't count the number of times we've made mistakes like that.
Sure.
Totally innocently.
It happened multiple times, though. That was what people were talking about, taking extra cards, taking extra turns.
Well, they did a backward, reverse engineered the game. They figured out how many turns each person took, how many cards they drew, how many cards they ended up with. They never said that they actually saw him actually going out of turn. For somehow they had the referees and they had the filming, but they couldn't actually see him doing something wrong. They just figured out, based on the number of turns that were taken, he took way too many turns. He didn't even go first. He went second, the one who won that game. So he shouldn't have been taking more turns than the guy who went first. And that's how they figured it out. It's like, wait a minute, somewhere along the line, he drew too many cards, played too much. It's one of these things, it's very, very murky, but Days of Wonder has the right to do that, to review the tape and decide, no, this isn't right. One thing I don't like was how everybody rushed to judgment and just splashed the big word cheat, cheat, cheat right up front, when it could have been an accident. We don't know.
Yeah.
So that's the controversy. Is everybody wants to rush to put the scoop out there and say, hey, headline. And it wasn't really. So let's put that to bed. It's nice, though, that board gaming is important enough to have its very own scandal. Operation. There's some good and bad news about Operation, the board game that we all know and love. The Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, has their Hall of Fame of toys and games. They had a bunch of nominees. Operation was on that list of nominees, but it did not get into the Hall of Fame. They chose not to honor a board game this year. So now we know what the toy industry thinks of our little hobby. But the even worse news right around the time that vote was taken, was that the inventor of the game Operation was in sore physical straits, needed an operation. I'm not sure exactly what the physical nature was, but he was in bad shape, and they made light. Some of the reports made light of for a very small sum, and that was it. He sold away the rights. And so this late in life, even though Operation was a fantastically successful game, the inventor didn't have much money to his name. So he and some supporters created a Kickstarter fundraiser to raise the money for his operation. And once this became known, Hasbro stepped up to the plate and offered to kick in a lot of money, not as a giveaway, but basically what they said was they will purchase the inventor's prototype in exchange for the money that he needs for the operation. So there was a business deal involved, but it was a timely one. So now Hasbro has the original Operation game, and the inventor, John Spinello, has the operation that he so desperately needed. So that bit of good news worked out well. Did you guys hear that there might be a new Jumanji movie?
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Has no one learned?
Has no one learned not to play that game?
No.
What year is it?
Now, the only reason this gained any traction was Karen Gillan made some tweet in her Twitterverse suggesting that she might be a part of that. But there's no official confirmation. They've been talking about a Jumanji film remake for a while. No. But it got me to thinking, okay, what if there was a board game that they made a Jumanji-type film out of? Like a real board game, where it would really be creepy if the board game came alive. Miniatures games, okay, that's obvious. Where the little miniatures suddenly bloom into giant size. But what about cardboard strategy games? I mean, I'm thinking of games like Cosmic Encounter, Smallworld.
Sure.
You open the box to Smallworld, and
There was a sequel to Jumanji. Well, not a sequel, but a spiritual sequel that involved a space adventure board game, right?
Zathara?
Zathara, or something like that. It was terrible. But
even worse than Jumanji.
I like Jumanji.
Jumanji was fun.
Then again, I was the target demographic when it came out. I think that it's a hard thing to make interesting.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Even I know it's a concept. Might be brilliant in theory, but no, I can't see it happening. We have some CCG news and a little LCG news. It never really made much difference to me. It never really made much sense to me what the difference was between LCGs and CCGs. the line is blurring even more now with Fantasy Flight's announcement that their living card games are going to go into rotation now. They're going to be coming out with new sets. They're going to be retiring old sets. It's creeping a little bit closer to the traditional CCG that we know about. Hold on for a minute. Oh, so this is from Fantasy Flight's press release. The living card game model is all about growth and evolution. And I thought it was all about stability. But anyway, they said, now, having recognized the problems inherent within the natures of constantly expanding card pools, we're moving forward with the next stage in the growth of our LCGs. So, in order to assure the continued health and success of our games, we're introducing a rotation policy. Is this the death of LCGs? Is there really such a thing anymore?
It's part of the problem with the tournament system and that they're trying to address now. Whether that's for good or not, I'm not too sure. But, you know, even with an LCG, eventually it becomes so big and there's so many cards to it that it kind of gets away from new players, you know, just trying to enter into something new. And then there's so many cards. I don't know where to start. Can I even play competitively in tournaments? And then there's always the question of meta. You know, when you have, 10, 20, 30, 40 different packs and people are choosing to create a deck, it does get a little iffy as far as, there's combos that are unbreakable. There's, certain cards that you must have, but it's only one card from one pack, and that pack was 5 years ago, so maybe they need to, make things a little bit smaller.
This is what they're doing. Yeah,
yes.
This is they've identified.
But the logic of it, it's if you think about that's all true, and you can't argue with them on that. But they created their own problem. You release new cards every month.
Yes,
for
exactly.
every single game. It's like, oh, so our greedy business model has made it so we have to make it even worse because this is the solution to the problem.
And I think that's one of the issues is, you're selling so much product and you really don't care about the outcome of it, whether it's necessary or not. I don't know. But then at certain points, the tournament setup becomes unmanageable, right?
Yeah.
You can't just sit down anymore. And I think that's what they're starting to see is that people are getting away from the tournament scene because you just can't play anymore. It's just it's impossible.
Yeah, because if you compare it to a CCG, Wizards releases 3 new blocks of cards a year now. It was 4, now it's just 3. Mm-hmm. And with an LCG, you have 13 new blocks of cards every year. Because you get those packs come out every month, and then they release one large expansion, usually every year. So it's not the same volume of cards. Like a whole, a Magic set's, a couple hundred, versus the 60 that are in a data pack for like Android Netrunner. But it's the volume of cards is higher. So, of course, it expanded beyond their own scope really quickly.
The one thing I appreciated about LCGs was it gave you the sense of a level playing field, is that everybody could have the same cards.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the point where, no, only the people who have enough cash on hand to keep buying all the new cards. Not everybody wants to keep up with it financially.
Now, here's something you could do. So take the L, make it mean not living, but legacy card game.
Sure.
You could play an LCG as a plot. Developing, right? So you would start off with just the very first base set, have these packs lined up, right? So you'd start off with just the very first base set and have these packs lined up so that when certain events happen in game, the plot advances and new parties into the field, right? Have it build complexity organically for the people who are playing, and it gives a sort of narrative feel to a campaign feel to the game.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a good way to help resolve the sort of problems that LCGs are running into nowadays.
Well, Lord of the Rings kind of does that.
Okay.
I mean, those are story packs.
Yeah.
Like, each new segment is, like, there's a saga, which is, like, the annual release, and then the packs that come out monthly support that, build into it, and they have, like, the Nightmare decks that go on top of that. But that's not a competitive game, so it doesn't really fit the same model. It's cooperative/solo. And I'm sure there's competitions for it, because they have competitions for everything, but that wasn't even affected by any of this.
Yeah, because
it's not a separate thing.
It's not a tournament thing, but even playing Star Trek Attack Wing or X-Wing miniatures, like Star Trek Attack Wing, when we were talking about that, it was all based around the Deep Space Nine saga, television series, and now recently it's the Borg. I felt like once Deep Space Nine, the tournament ended, it should have stopped there, because once you bring the Borg in, it kind of throws off the power. And then we also talked about power creep, where new decks are absolutely positively necessary if you want to play tournament. because some of those cards are just invaluable in play. So it's a very hard hobby to kind of keep your hands on.
It's going to be complicated to keep up to date.
The lines are definitely blurred though, because you can go buy, packs of Magic cards that you could just sit down and play with a friend. Like for every block that comes out, they'll have like whatever faction packs or whatever dual packs that you can just go buy if you just want to play. So that was one of the benefits of the LCG. You go buy the base set for $40 and sit down and play.
Yes.
You don't need to go buy 50 packs and build a deck. Magic allows you to do that now. Most CCGs do as well. So, like you said, the lines are kind of blurring a little. Yeah. The only difference now is the collectible aspect. Like the really good Magic card's still going to cost you $100.
Right.
Whereas an LCG, you just go buy the data pack. It's still just $15 to get the card you need.
And there's no really secondary market for LCGs. That's more of a CCG kind of thing because you can still get the pack.
Yeah. If they stop printing them, which they might with this new rotation, who knows?
Like I said, they're going to be cards that are going to be dropped out. Retired some. I don't know how that's going to work out. It just always seems like a big marketing thing. Whatever allows them to get as much income as possible.
I mean, that's their goal, right? They're a company. They're trying to stay afloat.
Yep.
It's not... And there's another bit of news that came out in the last couple of weeks that basically goes along with that, but at the expense of the store owners. We always used to think like that's their bread and butter. They got to keep selling enough cards to the kids to stay in business. Well, it seems like Wizards of the Coast is putting the squeeze on store owners with their Magic cards. They have cut their margin, the retailer's margin, by 2%. They haven't changed the retail price, but they're cutting the discount that they were giving to retailers, squeezing them. So the retailers have to give more money to Wizards and not charge any more for it. So I don't know what that's all about, other than Magic wants to increase their bottom line a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the price of production probably went up. I'm sure they have crazy margins. They're making cards.
But they're not allowing the store owners to pass on that increase.
Yeah, that's the funny part. Like, you don't want to raise your MSRP, but you're raising your prices.
Yeah. Because unlike a lot of other games, right, collectible card games, you need to have a store because you need to have someone to run tournaments for you.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the other point. They're encouraging online registering. So you can now register for tournaments online. You don't have to go to a store. You don't have to do all that. Stores used to depend on that, on registering people at the desk, signing up, doing all of that, because that was one of the ways that they could show Wizards that, look, this is our volume, this is what we're doing, this is...
Where do they play, though?
Well, they could play anywhere. They could play in the store, they could play anywhere. If you can register online, then your venues are open.
As long as you have someone there to run the tournament.
Exactly.
You could do it in the library for all you care.
Yeah, exactly.
And once again, that's nice for the players, but bad for friendly local game stores.
Yeah.
And I understand they're trying to capture more of the market for themselves, but these things, you're going to benefit some and really hurt others. I don't know how this is going to end up.
In long term, you just hurt yourself. If you cut out the culture from underneath everything, you're like, all right, well, let's squeeze the game stores, and then they all shut down, and then where are these kids going to go to learn to play these games?
Yeah, I mean, because even if you can run your tournaments yourself, you're not going to be running the weekly gaming sessions where friends just come together and hang out for 6 hours playing Magic, because you don't have that. I mean, unless you really intend to spread your infrastructure that wildly, but that'd be...
Well, they tried and they failed, so they're not going to do it again.
Yeah.
But to be fair, is there enough game stores to support people who want to play? Maybe they're realizing that if they don't do this, and if they don't let gamers get together in unusual locations like a library or a cafe or something, that they're missing a huge amount of market, because the number of game stores, brick and mortar, are very few and far between.
That is true. And they might be trying to cut their connection to a diseased entity, right?
Well, they maybe not even cut, but maybe trying to reach out and expand. I mean, we saw this with Target and Barnes & Noble, where you had games like Munchkin, for example, Munchkin Legendary, that was only sold to the big box stores, and then the small stores were like, hey, we support you the entire time, what's going on here? So, but they were like, we're trying to reach out to a new audience that don't have access to a local store.
Yeah.
So
it's now into a loop. The fewer stores there are, then the less attention that the publishers are going to pay toward the stores.
Sure.
The few that are remaining, it's tough. I really feel sorry for them. Some more big business shenanigans. Hasbro has been in the news recently. Supposedly there are rumors about a proposed merger with DreamWorks.
Wow.
Again, there's nothing, as of this recording, there's nothing definite, but the direction seems to be Hasbro buying out DreamWorks. That's how much money they're dealing with.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's not what I would expect.
It could even be one of these takeovers.
Is that paper money?
They can churn it. They can churn it.
Is the money all colorful and?
Does that mean we're getting a real D&D movie? Like,
if they buy them, there's going to be a lot of board game movies.
Yeah.
God help
May
us
not
all.
be a good thing.
Could be a HeroScape movie.
Well, okay, if you think of the properties that they have, the really good. Well, My Little Pony, for example, phenomenally.
Why do you always
successful.
go there when
I have to. I'm a secret brony.
You
Come
know
on,
Drew's a
I-
brony.
Yeah, I did. So they do have enough big franchises that they could churn out the animated films for kids and to no end,
Yeah.
ad nauseum. But the businessmen, the real hard money people at Forbes and even Nasdaq.com, they're saying, don't be in such a hurry. That's why these are still rumors. There's nothing. It may not even happen because they realize they're better off being separate. And you know how board game movies. But I got to take a step back. Toys and games are all about the merchandising. It's never been about the toy or the game itself. Toys and games, My Little Pony is not about, you can put out a film about My Little Pony. It's not about the film. It's just about selling more product.
Yeah.
I think I had that backwards earlier. So I can see where Hasbro would think, keep churning out those movies and sell more product.
Yeah, I mean, they could have an in-house production facility for a lot of their property. They're the ones who own Transformers, right? And they're the ones who own
Transformers, yes.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and
It's been working for them.
so they could use DreamWorks to make animated series, right? They change up the model a little bit, but the infrastructure and the skill set would be there.
Yeah. Well, they'd find ways to cheapen it. You'd watch the production values of Transformers go right down to...
Yes, we can't let that go down.
No, we can't.
You're right, Drew. That would just, Shakespeare be rolling his grave right now.
That's probably the best thing that could happen to the Transformers franchise, is that they get less money.
Once you hit bottom, Drew, hit the core of the earth, you'll eventually come out the other side. So it might do some
finally.
good.
Okay, let's get rid of big business, talk about small business for a moment. Black Friday's coming up. Black Friday, generally, the day after Thanksgiving, is all about big business, big box stores. American Express, for the last few years, have been sponsoring a small business Saturday, the day after Black Friday, to focus on small businesses. And this has been good for the friendly local game store, too. In fact, the numbers that I saw about last year was Black Friday numbers were down slightly, whereas the Saturday numbers for small businesses were up slightly. So it bucked the trend. There's the potential there for more sales. Don't spend all your money at Target or the other stores we're not going to name. Save it till Saturday and go into your friendly local game store and see what they have on sale. That's a thing that we want to support. That is our news for this week. There's a lot of it, but interesting stuff.
All right, awesome. All right, so next up, we're going to look at our acquisition disorders for this week. Acquisition Disorder Corner. All right, so acquisition disorders for this week. What you guys looking at?
Well, for me, I found out or heard through reliable sources that Ravensburger Game is re-releasing a second edition of San Juan. Releasing a second edition of San Juan, and I could probably just stop that there because I know this is one of the most sought after games in the market, right? It was clearly there are not enough copies printed for the demand, and for me this game has a special personal value because it was the game I think that pushed me over from casually attending the board game meetup to being a dedicated member and a dedicated board gamer. It was the one that just put enough evidence on the fact that this was something I really enjoyed and a hobby I wanted to get more involved in, that it brought me to where I am today. So I'm extremely excited to get my hands on a copy of San Juan.
Yeah, me too. I'm buying that.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. It's it includes the expansion.
Good.
Yeah,
Really?
it includes the expansion with it. It's all part of the game now. Plus, there's a new building or new. Okay, I can't remember if it's a new building or a new role, but it must be a new role because it's something that if you don't get to do what you want to do, it'll give you at least a little something. It'll give you something to fill in the gap. So it just corrected something minor where people got left out if they didn't choose the right.
Sure, and it also
right
comes
role.
with brand new artwork, right?
I haven't even looked at it. I haven't even seen it. You know, your guess is as good. No, your guess is better than mine, Chris.
I'm on a
Such
podcast.
a good guesser. Yeah.
Of course, my guesses are good. When we were looking to put together the team, they said, "How are your guesses?" And I said, "They're perfect. I'm on the podcast."
All right.
So yes, brand new artwork for San Juan. The original artwork was not bad. This new artwork is just a nice kind of clean up, more realistic kind of version for it. And if you've never played San Juan, it's a very simple tableau building game where the cards act as production buildings that you can play in the game, and they'll also act as currency. So super simple. If you're looking for a great entry-level game, San Juan is absolutely the way to go.
It's one of the most elegant rule sets I think I've ever encountered in gaming. Just the fact that every number refers to the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It's all numbers of cards. That's it.
I have used this as an introductory game, a gateway game. It is one of the best in the business as far as gateway.
Yeah.
It was super surprising when I out of print. I'm like, how is this not a game people want to buy?
Yeah.
I mean, it plays well as a tournament, and as Drew was saying, a great entry-level game, but just a very smart, interesting, complex, yet little tiny box for a game. And while it does have some aspects of Puerto Rico, this is not a Puerto Rico card game.
No.
So do not be scared of this game. This is not highly complex, crunchy game.
No, I had actually, so right after I played San Juan, people were like, oh, if you like that, let's play Puerto Rico. And then I played Puerto Rico, and I was just staring off into the distance, wistfully dreaming of the day when I was playing San Juan.
I hate when people do that. They're not even remotely the same thing. It's just like you took the theme and you created a completely different game with it.
Exactly.
It's not the same game.
No, if you're going to want a next step game from San Juan, you'll try Citadels. That's the next step, the next logical step.
And that's why those people are not on the podcast, because their guesses aren't good.
No. Listen, so now San Juan's back in print. Maybe someday, soon, El Grande will be back
I
in
would love
print.
to see El Grande print. If they could reskin that too, I know that's a little bit of a heresy, but if they could reskin that as something new, I would love that too, because that's a great game.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, my acquisition disorder, talking about nice entry-level gateway games, Munchkin, but Munchkin Treasure Hunt. Now, this is, for us gamers, Munchkin is already an entry-level, kind of super simplistic, love it or hate it kind of fun, cutesy game. But Steve Jackson Games developed a board game version of this that will be out at Toys R Us that's actually a little more cutesy, a little more kid-friendly. The Munchkins have shrunk down to kid version. The artwork, while never, at least for me, scary or intimidating, has also been kind of, childrenized to a part where instead of just having a zombie who's like losing the leg and his little kind of brain sticking out, now it's like, it's a zombie. He's gray, but he's fully together and he's smiling. So it's a nice entry-level game for an entry-level game, and then which will bring you to other entry-level games. But if you do have family or children that look at you very strangely when you pull out your hobby board games, Munchkin Treasure Hunt might be for you, because it's a roll and move a little bit, but you do get to play some of the aspects of Munchkin, like asking for help if a player is nearby, and utilizing equipment and treasure to kind of win the day, and still has that wonderful artwork by John Kovalek. So it's a great acquisition, and you should check that game out.
Can I just rename that? Make it easier for me to remember the game. Munchkin Babies. I think it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be a great name for it.
Munchkin Babies, making your creatures die horribly.
Wow.
Okay, I'm always been a fan of print and play because I'm cheap and don't have a lot of money.
Wait a minute. Is that cheap and easy?
You have to pay for paper, yeah,
And
but
ink.
but recycled paper.
But ink is expensive.
And listen, you can go behind the trash dumpsters of businesses, offices, and pull out toner cartridges that still have enough toner left that you can get some more.
This man's dedication is unmatched in board gaming. That's why he's on the podcast. We know why I'm on. Great guesses. Drew is willing to go the extra mile. You guys, we're not sure yet, but hopefully by the end of the podcast, we'll figure out why you're here. All right, Drew, go ahead.
It's just, and I love variations that take great ideas to the next logical extreme. And I love that phrase, logical extreme. Bang! Okay, came out with a Walking Dead version. Cool, as far as it goes. As far as it goes. But we all know that in Walking Dead, you eventually become a walker. So the Bang Walking Dead version never gave you that opportunity. A fan of the game came up with a version. You can find it on Reddit, and I can put the link to that in the show notes. A fan-created expansion for Bang Walking Dead where the players, when they are shot dead, come back into the game as walkers.
Ah, okay.
So you can have one team or another win the game, but the game is not over until the walkers are killed. So even if you supposedly win the game, the first part of the game, you could still end up losing the whole game if the walkers, defeat you. Okay. So they created a whole, this is not a simplistic game. This guy thought this through. It fits very well to the whole Walking Dead world. And if you really are serious about following that theme, that mashup between the game and the TV show, give this a try. And as I said, I'll put it in the show notes. I can't wait to try it.
All right.
Awesome.
Now let's talk to the other guys who were clearly carrying in this podcast, Drew. Guys?
I already did mine.
Yeah,
Nothing?
Sir.
It was so light that no one even noticed. I'm sorry.
All right.
Chiming in on it.
Anthony.
You jumping in on mine. But oh no, San Juan ain't good enough for Chris.
All right.
Anthony, you're going to have a newborn soon. So what game do you want to buy for newborns that you can play with a newborn?
What is a good game for your utero? What are your utero games, Anthony? Your in utero games. Come on. You're in the womb.
The game called Sleep. I don't know. That's it for Acquisition Disorders this week. Next up, we'll look at what we've been playing lately.
Kicking the Habit.
Hey there, kickers. This week on Kicking the Habit, we're going to take a look at 4 campaigns that recently wrapped up, including Twisted Kicks, the party game for Generation Y, Ginger Dead House, Omen, A Reign of War, Omega Edition, and Omega Edition Deluxe, Friends and Foes, and 4 brand new controversial campaigns, including The Princess Bride 3 brand new card games, Oddball Aeronauts 2, Double the Trouble, Lap Dance, and New Bedford, a board game of historic whaling and town building. So check us out on November 26, 2014, and I'll let you know if you should kick these games off, kick back and wait, or just kick them to the curb.
At the table this week.
All right. So what have we been playing the last week or so?
Well, for me, in the last week, the thing that I've been playing was the Smash Up Science Fiction Double Feature expansion, which I used my copy to let Chris play. So,
And that's why you're on the podcast.
There we go.
It makes sense
Because
now.
I own some games. That's why I'm here. There's a very low bar of entry here, guys.
Apparently,
Very low
what Chris
bar.
is saying is that you're easily replaceable.
Yeah. Hey,
Somebody has to have the games, and
the apartment where we record. That's my job.
true.
I'm the guy with the recording studio. Anyway, this expansion, it's a pretty straightforward Smash Up expansion. If you've played Smash Up, you know what to expect. If you haven't played Smash Up, that's too bad. I'm not going to explain it to you. Anyway, this comes with 4 new factions that you can mix together in the sort of Smash Up style. We've got the Time Travelers that let you go back in your discard pile and move forward and backwards through time. See what they did there? You've got Shapeshifters that can copy abilities of other cards. You've got Super Spies who can sort of rig the way the deck's going to come out. And then you've got my favorite, the Cyborg Apes, who are built around having a bunch of actions played on them, and they become rather terrifying rather quickly. So much so that there might be a balance issue, but it's not too severe, so it shouldn't hinder your enjoyment of the game. Especially since in Smash Up, like you all know, you have to mix two factions together, so it's really no one faction can make you win. You have to be smart in how you pair them. It's a great expansion, it's very thematic, it's a lot of fun, and it's exactly what I expected from Smash Up, so I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I like the new dynamics with that. I mean, it's so fitting, and it plays well with the game. Like you said, the time travel's going back through the discard pile. It's such a smart and obvious idea, but brilliant. It's really nice to have that there. I got a chance to play the mimics in that game, the shapeshifters. When you play the mimics, they actually mimic the highest number power of card in play. Now, they're worth 0 themselves, but if you can get those out, you can really break a base really quickly.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fun. The spies, as far as arranging the deck, probably would go better with other races. So you should really try to match these up with things that are already out there.
Yeah, I mean, so the way we played it, I played Cyber Chimps and Time Travelers. That is not a good combination. The Time Travelers contributed absolutely nothing. And you played Shapeshifters and Spies, and they're kind of pulling in different directions. So it ended up not giving us a lot of value. The Spies are really good with someone who has a lot of power in their deck that needs to put things out in a specific order. It doesn't work well with the Shapeshifters because their whole thing is about playing on the field, right? Manipulating stuff that's out there already. So I don't think that's a terribly great combo. And so we made bad combos there, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things nice about Smash Up. Even if you're playing it poorly, it's still fun.
Yeah. And it's good to see that there are things that don't work together, because if everything worked together really well, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Well, something I brought to the table recently was Jaipur. It's a game I found in John McCallion's collection. You know, I've been cataloging that for him. We're up to about 1,600 games now. There's quite a few. But when I saw Jaipur in his collection, I thought, I've got to try this. It's a very highly regarded game. It doesn't get a lot of attention because it's a two-player game, specifically built for 2 players. We tend to overlook those, but you'd be surprised at how many casual gamers out there only play games in sets of 2, husband-wife or parent-child. I think it's a great game for 2 players. In my mind, it's of the deck-building variety of games, where you're drawing cards and then you're trying to collect sets of cards, along with these extra, what do they call it, camel cards. So it's got some deck building, it's got some hand management features to it. The best part about that is it's a quick game, but you're supposed to play 3 games, and then you keep score after 3 games, like whoever's the best out of 3. I actually like games like that. So the replayability factor is high. It's very quick, it's different each time, and if you really suck at the first game, well, let's play it again. Let's deal out some more cards, do it again, and do it again. They have some really good graphics, nice components, very small box. Definitely a game you should have in your collection. I love it. I wish it was in mine, but it's in John's. At least I got to play it.
I got a chance to play Munchkin Adventure Time. So, speaking about Munchkin, it is Munchkin, but it does have a lot of aspects of Adventure Time. So if you are a big Adventure Time fan, this is absolutely positively the game that you want to pick up, because this game is dripping with theme. So, in the basic Munchkin, you are building a character by the cards that you get, the races, the classes, and the powers. But in this game, you will actually get a character card. It's a very large card, and one side has the male version and the other side has the female version, and it will have a special ability just for that character. Now, in addition to that, the rest of the game plays out just like regular Munchkin plays out, but with the exception that it's a little more simplistic. So on the card itself, it will tell you just straight off on top, what the power of this ability is, how many hands you'll actually see a hand, if it's 1 hand or 2 hands. Now, if you're an Adventure Time fan, and I mean an uber fan, you're going to love this because the cards are ripped directly from the show. If you are...
Oh my God!
Wow.
And that's why he's on the show, man.
And that's our show for this week. We're done.
Leave it on the high point.
We're done.
Now, on the other side, if you're just a casual fan, or...
So not true.
or, you're just you like to play Munchkin, this game is not for you, because the game is so strongly aligned with the theme that the cards that come out aren't just generally funny. They're really only going to be funny for an Adventure Time, I would say, kind of hardcore fan, because I like the show. I've seen a couple of episodes, and I recognize some of the characters, but if you're not a hardcore fan, this is not going to work for you. You should pick up something else.
A lot of in-jokes.
All in-jokes. You know, when you play a regular, Munchkin, the puns and the tropes are there. They're pretty well open for, the general public consumption. Everyone kind of understands certain things. This is strictly for Adventure Time fans.
Right. So, before you buy the game, watch the show. You become a fan of the show, and then you'll like the game.
Yeah, watch a lot of episodes of the show. Otherwise, this game runs a little flat. But
or watch the show and be like, what?
Why?
What is happening?
But I know that there are a lot of games out there trying to capitalize on Adventure Time. This is the game if you're a hardcore fan.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
All right, cool. All right, so that's everything we've been playing this week. Next up, we're going to take a look at our feature review. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's Smallworld.
It's a small world after all.
Stop it.
Oh my God.
And now for the feature review.
It's a world of slaughter, so we're talking about Smallworld this week. Now, if you haven't gotten to play the absolute gem that is Days of Wonder, you are missing out. Now, Smallworld takes area control to the next level. It was originally based on Da Vinci, and this is kind of a more artistically cartoony, yet highly complex game of taking over this small world by pushing out races in decline and knocking your friends off the board. But not to be afraid, this is not your Risk player elimination, because in this game what you're able to do is start with a race, use that race as much as you can to the best of its ability, and once that race kind of reaches its final level and can't go any further, you put that race into decline and then choose a new race. So that's the brilliance of Smallworld, that it never gets stale, because once those guys kind of run out of juice, pick a new race and kind of invade again. Now, Smallworld incorporates a number of different boards that match the player number, so you never have to worry about not having a small enough world. Now, the base game plays up to 5 players, from 2 to 5, but you can also get the expansion map that plays up to 6. The game itself comes with a large number of races and special powers. Now, this is the brilliance of the game, because not only are you playing a race, but you're playing a race with a randomly generated type of special power. So in the game, you'll get these really nicely quality, this is a Days of Wonder game, race that locks into a special power. So you could have Dragon Master Amazons, or you could have Commando Amazons, or you could have Spirit Amazons. You could really have an unlimited number of combinations, especially with the expansion. So you'll pick your race to start the game from a kind of little menu, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of different races. Once you pick that, you'll get the appropriate number of tokens. So a race comes with a certain number of tokens. On the bottom right, there'll be a number that will specify how many tokens that you get, how many kind of troops, and then the special power will have an additional number that you'll add together, and that will be your number of tokens to kind of invade that small world. Now, that's not it. You also get a special power with each race and a special power with the special powers. Sometimes those powers work really well together, sometimes not so much. But if you don't want to pick that race, that first one that's on the bottom, you'll pay a coin, and you can move up the ladder to pick the next race, and so on and so forth. When you start the game, you will be entering from one of the land masses to kind of start your kind of intrusion into this world. There'll be some already in decline races which will cost you an extra token. Now, once again, since this is a nice entry-level game, you don't have to worry about complex mathematics as far as taking over territory. If there's nothing on a territory, no decline race, no mountains, it only takes 2 troop tokens to take over that area. Simple, right? Now, if there is a decline race or a mountain, which is another little piece of cardboard, it will cost you an additional race to take over that area. So, not too bad, right? Once you kind of spread out based upon your special abilities and your race powers, which are just outstanding because there's such a lot of color, flavor, and theme to it, you typically go into decline at a certain point, maybe 3 or 4 turns in, and that's where the strategy comes in. When do you go into decline? Because maybe your race can conquer 2 or 3 more regions, but at the same time, there's that great race out there that you want to pick up. So when you go into decline, you have to kind of like score your victory points. Let's talk about victory points then. The number of areas that you kind of have captured, you will score a victory point or a coin for each of those areas. Now, the coins that you collect are victory points at the end of the game, so it's important to kind of manage that. When you collect those, they'll be face down, so no one knows how many coins you have unless they're keeping a close eye on you. Now, so if you have 5 regions, you get 5 victory points or coins in this game, but your race powers and the special abilities will also score you additional points based upon what the combo is. Now, other people are going to kind of mess with you to come in there and knock you out. You'll push them out. They'll push you out. Some other player come from out of nowhere to kind of alter the game. So you want to keep track of what everyone is scoring. You want to control the largest area possible. But you also want to keep in mind your special powers and race abilities because some of their abilities will score additional points depending on where you land in the board. So you might have an opportunity to have a mounted Amazon which will be able to conquer regions such as farmlands for 1 less token, or you could have forest skeletons that will score an extra gold coin for conquering a forest region. It's a very simple, very fun game, has a lot of flavor to it, and kind of unlimited number of expansions at this point. So you really can kind of put them all together. There's Smallworld, which is the base game. There's Underworld Smallworld, which gets a little bit darker, and it's literally the underworld, so you'll see some more kind of darker, quote-unquote, creatures, although yet it's still kind of family-friendly. And there's unlimited number of expansions. There's the Great Dames, there's the Cursed expansion. So there's a lot of ways to play this game. It's a lot of fun. We talked about the app in previous podcasts that you can play online. And it's a Days of Wonder game, so you really can't go wrong. So let's go back to the real world and see what everyone thinks about Smallworld.
Don't sing it. Don't sing it. Nobody?
We can't afford to pay that, right?
You know why you can't sing Smallworld anymore? Because this is one of the largest worlds in board gaming. You know, when you think of all the expansions and all the races and the possibilities, you can do a lot with this. It's not a small world anymore. That's what makes this really a worthy investment. Even if you're a little skeptical at first, you got to realize there's so many different ways to take this, except for one. Underground. I played Underground. Didn't really like Underground because it gives you missions. It's almost like mission Risk, you know. For people that hated Risk, well, it's had missions. There are certain goals in Underground that I think...
the tokens, right? The special relics.
Yeah, it detracts from the game. I mean, Smallworld by itself, even if you never bought another expansion, you would have so much fun with it. It's a great game, beautifully designed. So not all expansions are going to improve. Try some, just don't go with Underworld.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very good game, and I've only ever owned the base game, and I've never felt the need to go beyond it, but it's just one of those games like, this would be really easy to have some really cool expansions onto. And it's also one of the very few of my hobby games that I've been able to get my mom to play, get my friends who aren't gamers to play, because it's so easy, it's so friendly, and it's so charming. And this game is actually one I owned before I even met you guys, and it still occasionally makes it out to the table for me. It's still one I enjoy, right? So this is a game I bought before I was even really rightfully a hobby board gamer, and it still holds allure to me now that I've delved into the depths of the hobby. And I think that shows just how strong of a game it is, right? It's fun as a beginner, it's fun as a novice, it's fun as advanced novice, intermediate, whatever, and it's fun as having years of gameplay under your belt still, right? It's no matter where you are.
Do you think it's possible to create your own races and qualities combinations. I mean,
that's one of the great things about Smallworld. Each of the base sets and some of the expansions, they actually come with blank tokens.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you can create your own race and you can create your own special power. In fact, some of the expansions are fan-created expansions. So when you buy the expansion, it'll actually have the name of the fan who created that. And Days of Wonder has been outstanding to kind of, help that community build new content because it's what we love.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's interesting. It's one of the few places where you can see the sort of modding community that is present in video games and that sort of thing, moving over to board games and making large-scale modifications that then get adopted by the company and then sort of redistributed, right, sent out. Kind of reminds me of the player-created game worlds in D&D and that sort of thing, but it's really fantastic how malleable this game is.
And I want to just mention, because when I said that there was a number of expansions, you might go, oh, there's, 1 or 2 expansions. But we talked about Smallworld, the base set. We talked about Smallworld Underground, which is a separate base game. So if you pick up Smallworld Underground, as Drew said, he's not too happy with the relics and the extra tokens that come into play that give you special powers and ability.
Not that special.
But you can play with that base set alone. But that's not it. There's Be Not Afraid, which adds some more powers and special characters. There's Leaders, which was recently reprinted, which adds a special leader token to the game. There's Grand Dames, which is one of my favorite expansions because it adds some more powerful women to the game, which I always love to see. There's Smallworld Realms, which is kind of the gamer's game version of Smallworld, which actually allows you to create your own board from some module pieces. Mm-hmm. And the module pieces are double-sided, so you can have a mix of Smallworld, the base set characters, and Smallworld, the underground characters, because some of those characters only benefit from those certain tiles. So maybe like the underground character only benefits from volcanoes. Well, there's no volcanoes in the original set, but if you put some tiles there, it kind of works together. In addition to that, there's actually scenario play and team play in the underground. Smallworld Realms is great because it adds such a huge dimension to hobby gaming. Not for your entry-level players, but for your hobby gamers, it's definitely there. There's also Smallworld Tales and Legends, and I played this a lot with my family too, Daniel, and I really like that because it adds a deck of cards that act as a global effect each turn. And once again, the artwork is outstanding, so that's really fun. Smallworld Curse, Smallworld Necromancer Island, which has just been recently reprinted, and then an unlimited number of different fan expansions, and recently they just released Smallworld Royal Bonus, which has some new characters. We talked about the 6-player board. Smallworld A Spider's Web is not out yet, but will be out soon, so you can pick that up as well. And there's not much more to say than, about Smallworld from my perspective, other than when I started gaming, Risk was the game. And when I came across Smallworld, this is the game that really brought me into hobby gaming, and it's still an active game on my shelf too.
Yeah, it probably fits that niche nowadays that Risk did for someone of my generation. Yeah. It's like a starter. You got to have this, and it's going to be enduring.
So for me, this is an absolute buy, whether it's Smallworld, and Drew will talk about his, little bit dislike of Smallworld Underground.
I already did talk about it.
But, for me, you can't go wrong if it's the original Smallworld, if it's Smallworld Underground. The expansions only add to the game. I would hold off on Realms until you've played the original game. But otherwise, an outstanding game and definitely a purchase.
Yeah, if there's people you don't like in your life, make them monsters in this game. Use those blank tiles, bring them in there. Neighbors and bosses, create a whole new race for them.
It's the in-law race.
Yeah, the horrible neighbors.
That's a joke because I like my in-laws.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could have a lot of fun. It's a must-have. It's got to be a classic. Everyone.
Absolutely, it's one of the stronger buys I've ever recommended. It is a must-have. It is a core game. You cannot go wrong buying the base set. Take a look at some of the expansions. Probably pick up some of those too. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
And I was lucky enough to jump on the bandwagon for their designer edition, which we will, hopefully once I get it in my hands, I'll do an unboxing video so you could see how they raised an already outstanding game, especially with the components, which are really high quality, to an even higher level. But go out, pick up Smallworld. enjoy the fact that you can kind of smash and crash your friends. No one gets eliminated, and everyone has fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a game I have not played yet, but somehow one of those. Everybody's got those games that are like hobby, cornerstones. You just never get around to playing, and especially with the podcast, we don't always get around to all of them. But it's on the bucket list. I will play it. I'm sure I'll like it. I've played the app a couple times. It was fun. So it's definitely the kind of game I would enjoy, and probably something I would pick up eventually because it's accessible, easy to teach. I'm always trying to drag my family into the hobby.
Well balanced. So. A lot of hours of gameplay had to go into this play testing. Very balanced.
No, that's awesome. All right, so that's everything for our feature review of Smallworld. It was an easy one of the greats of hobby gaming, but definitely one that's worth grabbing, especially because the support here has been amazing. They're going to keep releasing stuff. They're great with their fans. I want to see that designer edition. I saw a couple pics from Essen, but they were blurry on cell phones behind glass. Looked like everything was made of wood.
Yeah, even if you don't pick up the designer edition, the regular edition, the components are pure days of wonder, and you won't be disappointed.
Awesome. All right, so that's everything for our feature review. Next up, final round with Drew.
Hey, this week, final round is celebrating Black Friday, the day when steep discounts are the order of the day. Now, we buy games all during the year, but there are some things that we just can't get or won't get because the price is so steep. So I thought, what's your wish list? If there was a big, huge, giant, expensive box that had a steep 90% off discount, what would that be? What would you be first in line for at, let's see, when are they opening now?
Thursday.
Noon on Thanksgiving. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Which games would you skip Thanksgiving dinner for to wait in line? And I'll give you an example. The Ogre Designer Box, which is larger than most school children. It's huge.
Definitely weighs more than most school children.
Yeah, it's a gigantic box. And it's one of those where it's a lot simpler to play than it looks, than the unboxing. You're going to spend more time unboxing. It's a lot of fun. You get to manipulate these guys around the board, and you're trying to bring down this one great big giant machine. Beautiful miniatures and a beautiful, beautifully designed board. But the Ogre box, you don't have to put anything together. It's all there. That's what's great about it. So it's basically right out of the box. Play it. But too huge to want to buy on your own.
Yeah, well, for me, the dream would be a big box version of Defenders of the Realm, right? The core game, all the expansions, everything thrown together. I would be there the day before Thanksgiving if I had to be. My family sees enough of me anyway, right? But yeah, Defenders of the Realm is a fantastic game. It's one I've really wanted to pick up, and I really want all the expansions. None of the expansions have looked to me like they were going to be anything but wonderful. But it's expensive, right? The core set's $90, right? And then every expansion adds on to that, and eventually you're looking at something that's going to be approaching a $150 game, and
but 90% off. You could afford it then.
If it got knocked down, I would love to pick that up.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, I almost said Imperial Assault, but then I realized I'm going to buy it anyways. So I don't know if that really counts, regardless of price. I was telling my wife this morning, trying to describe to her what it was and where to look for it for Christmas. And then at the end, I was like, maybe I'll just buy it, and you can just get me less stuff, or we'll just call it good. Because if you don't, I'll have to go get it again. It's fine. So for me, I'm going to go with Space Hulk because it's super expensive. When it's not in print, it's rare. It's not going to be on sale anytime soon. But if there was some magic happy fairy sale somewhere, if a local game store basically had a Black Friday sale for 25% off or something, and they had a copy of that, I'll be all over that.
That's your Black Friday buy.
Yeah.
For me, it would be Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition. This is the huge but you have to buy an extra table for it. So it's not just the price of the game, but I have to buy several more tables to kind of fit this game in. It's an expensive game. It's worth it for the amount of components and the complexity of the game, but it usually runs over $100 at your local store. And if you're going to buy something that you're only going to play maybe once a year because of the time commitment, it would have to be at a massive sale because it's a beautiful, wonderful thing, but you're only going to see it maybe once a generation. Hit the table or hit several tables.
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. There's a couple of like the bucket list games. You're like, okay, so it'd be amazing to own this, and I can afford it, but I'm gonna play it once.
That's right.
And then I'm gonna be really annoyed, and it's be Drew's DeMocker. You're like, come on, guys.
Well, you know, it's the lead up to Christmas, and what better time to wish for things that we'll probably never get than.
Aww.
I'm getting Imperial Assault. That's happening.
That one. Okay. Well, that's our Black Market bucket list. Our final round for this week.
Our Black Friday bucket list.
What did I say? Black
Market. None of these games are illegal. None of these games are illegal.
Not yet.
But where
Not
Drew
yet they are.
Drew shops, they're illegal. Some people get 20% discount, and some people get a discount that falls out of someone's truck. What do you say? What's wrong with that? I don't know.
Now we know why Drew's on the podcast. Sure, there's John's Collection. All right, so that's everything for this week's episode. Make sure you connect with us on all the right places. Facebook, Twitter, we're at BGA Podcast. We are on Board Game Geek. We're on Board Gamers Anonymous. Follow us on Stitcher. Hit us on iTunes and leave a review. Let us know what you think. But everything for this week, that's everything for me. This is Anthony.
This is Chris.
This is Daniel.
This is Drew.
And until next time, we'll save you a place in our small little world. That is until we come in with Commando Giants and we knock you out and put you in decline. But nonetheless, we did save you a place, and in the end, that's really what matters, right? Right?
Yeah, no, it's
Okay, sure.
space was saved, but just because you took it back.
Yeah, it's temporary space. We never said you keep it forever.